I have another board. Today it's going to be 764. The ranges are still early position, 15% opening range, so pretty tight. And again, a very tight and condensed button flattening range. Lower pocket pairs, suited connectors, suited aces, and some suited broadways. And some, like queens and ace king are like very low frequency flats, not because I'm flatting them, but because I see population doing that, and yada yada. Bet sizings. I gave both players a third pot, 3/4 pot, and an overbet sizing on every street, along with a 75% pot raise on every street. I think that's basically how I've been doing almost all the sims, so let's just hop right into it. First thing on the rainbow board that you should notice is that it's a pretty much pure check from out of position. You can see that their equity, is quite high. It's actually below 50%, and their EV is well below 50%, right? Like, out of position really, really struggles to realize their equity on this board, right? If they really had 50% of the pot shared, their EV would be half of 75. So they're losing, 20% of the pot here by being out of position, which is massive, massive amounts. And I think the theme of things that I'm seeing in this spot is that I don't think most regs are checking range on 764 rainbow early position versus the button. I imagine they're c-betting 1/3. And so when I get into the no lock section, again, that's basically the no lock I ran, was how do we adjust against someone that is 1/3ing their entire range, right? Which is, the important thing to take away, right? That's a major change. So we look at a check, and then in position is mostly just betting small. This is like really annoying for in position to deal with. And they're doing this with like literally everything. I guess leaning towards doing this with hands that have backdoor flush draws. And obviously they're starting to check hands back that have really good showdown value. So like ace queen and ace jack don't really check that often. Or I don't really bet as much as a hand like jack nine suited with the backdoor, right? Because they just want to win the pot. Jack high generally doesn't have showdown value, and these types of hands also start, 10 high starts to bet often as well. Open enders bet almost always. These wheel aces that have less showdown value start to bet more. Top pairs bet. That should be, that seems pretty straightforward, but we're using a small sizing. And in response, under the gun is check raising like somewhat frequently. So notably hands like 10-9 suited, so 2 overs with a gut draw and a backdoor flush draw. Pretty strong hand. King 10 is check calling. I guess it just feels it has enough showdown value. Or check raising if it has a backdoor flush draw, and check folding if it doesn't. Important to note. And the more we walk up our showdown value, the more we start to check call. And so I think hands like 10s, 9s, and 8s also check call the majority of the time. I think, having the spade plays a factor here. The idea that, you want to block their bluffs. And since they're, bluffing slightly more often when they don't have a spade, having a spade unblocks bluffs. Or maybe even unblocks continues so you can get value from. That kind of thing. But I guess it's just such a minor thing. It doesn't actually seem to impact things that much. But that would be, you can see jacks here is check raising slightly more often when you have a spade than without, that type of thing. And I think I would be tempted to check raise hands like, 8s through 10s very frequently, and maybe start to like pure call aces, exploitably, obviously. But I think those, you can make the frequencies work out, because I feel like these hands benefit more from protection, whereas aces you can use as a check call type thing more often. And so when we check raise, button really is just calling these hands that have showdown value, like pairs, or double gutter with 10-8, 2 overs and a gut shot with 10-9, open enders, these types of hands. And king jack is like a really ambitious float. But I think if we go back and see what we're raising here, it's ahead of some stuff, right? It has 2 overs in the backdoor flush draw. It's like okay. And there's really no like 3-bet jamming going on this flop. So check call, and I think probably what the worst card is going to be a 5. So let's just take a look. Yep. And so this happens a lot when, we have, as raising under the gun with a tight range, we really have no 3x, and we almost have no 8x. So like a 5 is just obliterates our range. It really nukes our equity, right? And an 8, putting up another one-liner where we really don't have much 5x really nukes our equity. A 3, putting up, all these one-liners that we just never have really destroy our equity, because suddenly we're drawing dead if they have that stuff. They don't always do, but when they do, we are really, really just like, we have 0 equity in the pot, and that's really, really frustrating. And so I think a lot of these will end up being check folds. So let's put up a 5, let's say of spades, just for pure rainbow board. It goes pure check from out of position. And okay. Yeah, I mean this is just such a bad card for out of position that we start to just 1/3 it, because it's kind of like a 7 deuce rainbow, versus the big blind, where like big blind just can't defend. This is the same thing but reversed, where like we just have no 8x, we have no 3x, so we, like, as the under the gun player, we just really, really struggle to defend against this 1/3, and we still call our overpairs, but like everything else is just out of there. This is weird to me that 7th is just like ripping it. 10-9 suited is just ripping it. That makes sense to me. 8-9 suited just ripping it. That makes sense to me. That like you can cooler, 8-7 suited or pocket 8s or something like that, or like pocket 3s. But like this is an ambitious jam, right? Ace-7 of diamonds. That seems really ambitious to me, but the solver knows best. I guess like maybe blocking's like 7-8 type hands. I really don't know what's going on here. But yeah, this is just good to note that like when it puts up these one-liners, we are in big trouble as the PFR, the undergun player. But let's say it puts up a brick, like a 4. Suddenly we're betting more often and we're much more polar, right? We're saying we have an overpair. And this is a really good card for us, or comparatively this is a good card for us, because if you have 6-7 suited, we're now beating those. You don't really have much 4x, you don't have any sets, you don't have as many sets. And so that kind of thing really helps. And I just want to check again what the number is for what are the best cards. And so yeah, board pairing cards and like King Jack, Broadway cards, which is like, I guess, some of our 3-bet bluffs, right? Like King Jack 10-9 with backdoor flush draws, those kind of hands. Not pick up pairs that are beating things, but a hand like a 4 or a 6 that pairs the board is pretty good because we counter for 2 pairs. They have less sets, that kind of stuff. And so I imagine just like playing out these runouts. Interesting to know that 4s in position will just jam here. I guess they feel like they're vulnerable enough, and there's a lot of bad cards in the river that, getting the money in now is important, that kind of stuff. And I just want to see like what are the worst rivers here. Wow, we just go all in. That makes sense. It's less than Paul behind. But worst rivers, again, just like putting these one-liners feel straight out there. Very bad. Broadway cards, very good. Boom. That's like easy to notice patterns, easy to process, and I get it. That makes sense to me. So let's go to the two-tone version. It always takes it just a second, but should be done in a second. I hope so, anyway. Still working. I guess loading trees just takes it forever. All right. So I've made 7-6. I made the 6 and the 4 the same suit. I don't know if that matters. But again, pure check. Again, 1/3 when you're betting from in position, and this looks like very similar to like the other sim. And again, pretty similar, like fewer check raises, if I remember correctly. But pretty similar stuff here. Wow, I mean, 7-8 of diamonds just goes for it. I guess it just feels like this is like pure equity driven, and I bet like 10-8 of diamonds, 8-9 of diamonds, like these like insane equity hands that are just never dead, I guess just kind of go for it. But really, it's 2% of the time, and so I would just lean pure call. So again, let's take a look at the worst cards for in position or for both players. Yeah, again, putting these one-liners out there is bad, and putting flush cards out there is actually good, apparently. Like the King of Diamonds is really good for out of position, which is counterintuitive to what I would think. I'm not entirely sure why. But I guess maybe these ranges are just thin enough, or like just narrow enough that, this isn't like versus the big blind who has just an insane amount of like 9-3 suited. It's just an insane amount of flushes. This is against a button range where they're like pretty similarly distributed. And so yeah, and we are check raising 2 over to the backdoor flush draw with the flush draw, so we're not entirely flush deficient. And when we do bet on a flush card, we're going to be betting 1/3 most of the time. And again, I don't think I need to put up a 5 out there just to show what's happening. We check call 1/3 bets, and but we only do that with like very narrow parts of our range. Okay, this seems to be like similar to the rainbow board, but obviously like having flush draws come in will change things, right? But it's good to note that it's not as bad for out of position. I'm actually gonna load the next board up while I can finish talking. So flush cards just aren't as bad for out of position. Whoops. They aren't as bad for out of position as I would think. I guess being so used to playing against big blind and looking at those spots, like when they just have like any 2 suited cards, like flushes heavily favor their range. And so when ranges are more narrow, like you have like pretty similar distributions of flushes. So I guess it's not that bad. So monotone board, again, pure check from out of position. It seems like a bit less betting, but when you do bet, you still bet 1/3. It's really just like you check back a lot of flushes too, which is, interesting. Yeah. And very few check raises on monotone boards. Almost none, to be honest. I guess like some flushes, but like really you just check call them. Yeah, interesting. And so this one's going to be interesting. I don't really know what... Okay, so like every card is just good for out of position. Yeah, interesting. Okay, I would have thought this was like a really bad board for us, but it's really not. Like 4 diamonds, okay, I get that makes sense because we have a lot more offsuit ace-x and king-x combos, so like when the 4th diamond comes, we have a lot more like a strong flushes, like king high and ace high flushes. But this is much better for under the gun than I thought it would be, and that's good to know. So I'll give it like a random diamond. I'll give it the 9 of diamonds. We don't put a 4-liner out there, but did I mess up here? Why is it pure check? I guess it just doesn't think it should bet. This is rare. I am still not convinced that I haven't put some sort of no lock in, but I guess I have done it correctly. Okay, so it really just plays pure check on like... What? So there's something messed up about the sim, but that's fine. I don't know where this came from. I think I have it configured right. It just thinks it's pure checking. That doesn't seem right. But, okay, so we check. Not a lot of betting. Even like king 10 of diamonds is checking back. It really thinks it's kind of like a 1 street of value type hand. And like even flushes, like nut flushes are checking back. Very weird. Sets are betting. weird. I don't. Do we have bluffs that we just like? Wow, we really do. That's crazy. These are like gutter, or like I guess it's an open ender technically. Um, sure. I mean, sure. This isn't how I would play it, but this is how the solver's going to play it. Okay. Um, yeah, this is weird. Like, I get the just calling. This is just one of those things that I just don't understand. I'm going to chalk it up to, like, I don't get it type thing. And just my major takeaway is going to be that monotone boards aren't as bad with such narrow ranges for the PFR. But this node, I don't know why it's defaulting to pure check, and I don't know why I don't know why we're turning ace-8 of spades into a bluff on a 4 diamond board. But maybe it makes people fold, like, so like, all right, so we jam or we raise. Are they ever folding a diamond? No. Maybe there's some like magic blockers here that I've messed up ranges with, because it seems like they just don't have a lot of flushes. Yeah, well, okay, so I guess it's saying it's not betting a flush, so like this check raise gets through more often, which I don't believe is happening at all, by the way. I believe that like population is going to check raise some flush. It is going to bet their flushes here. They're like king high flushes and stuff, but that is beyond the point. And so it's probably like too far down the line and too like infrequent of a run out to really care about. So the important one that I want to go over is the node lock. Because I think far more important than, 4 diamond boards on 6, 7, 4, 9, button versus big under the gun is just like a flop that people are over c betting and how to adjust against that. I think that's like going to generate much more EV if it ever loads. But that's the node lock I've chosen. I think that regs are, and probably recreationals are, in general, going to just like default 1/3 this board. And Pio is just pure checking. I didn't simulate it down all the way to 1% accuracy because I'm lazy. So we'll be 0.5% off and lose all that money. So 1/3 range. EV 26. I think we've lost 4 chips, which is about 10% of the pot. Pretty crazy. Yeah, it's essentially turned all of these hands negative. I think they were like break even to slightly negative, and now they're just like totally bad. So bet 25 strategy. We now raise 30% of the time with literally any 2 overs. We just say F it and just pop it in there. Sets 2 pairs. Pairs plus open enders. Pairs plus gut shots. Queens if we still have queens because we're bad and don't 3-bet them pre. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's just like 2 overs with some connectivity, I mean, even like queen 10 of spades, it's just like, yeah, I want to raise. Just because you have to fold so often. And it doesn't really care if it gets re-raised, right? Like if queen 10 of spades gets 3-bet here, it's like not that big of a disaster. Yeah. I mean, so this is just another takeaway. I think we saw this in an earlier board where it's just people are not checking these boards, and it's a very lazy way to play, but it's good for us because we can exploit them now, knowing that we should just be kind of like raising in position with like, almost. I bet you could do this with any 2 cards and make more money than if they had checked and let you bet 1/3. But that is all for now. Pretty straightforward board, I think. But with one important exploit, which is to raise pretty frequently. And I mean, you can see we fold 0.52% of the time. We fold literally nothing when they 1/3 this. So quite the difference from, I think, how this actually plays out. But good to know.